Welcome to the Rise Inside podcast, hosted by Justin Starbird and powered by Rise Robotics. Listen as host Justin talks to experts from the Rise team about topics relating to mechanical engineering, industrial design, commercialization, and innovation. True collaborations work when ideas are integrated at inception to solve significant problems. Rise Inside brings together how the team continues to work with great folks to commercialize ideas. You're listening to the Rise Inside podcast. Here's your host, Justin Starbird.
Welcome back to the Rise Inside podcast. My name is Justin Starbird, and I have a new guest. Exciting. I get to welcome Reed Sturtevant, general partner of the Engine, to the show today. Reed, hey, thanks for joining me, man.
Thanks, Justin. Great to be here.
Great to have you. So many, different ways that I've heard about you, know about the Engine, the Rise story, but it's just really cool to finally meet you.
Great.
Reed, I am excited to do this show with you today because, of course, Aaron speaks very highly of you, as do all of the founders. But want to know a little bit about what the Engine is, what the Engine does, and learn more about you.
Sure. So the Engine is a venture capital firm put into business about 5.5 years ago by MIT. So we've been given a mission to support and accelerate the development of companies that will make the world a better place through science and technology. So we have a set of venture funds. We write checks to very early stage companies. We also run specialized co-working space. So next week, we're moving into a facility in Cambridge, Mass. that has room for about 800 or 1,000 people and has shared not only desks, but has biosafety labs, chem labs, machine shop, electronics and prototyping facilities. So anything that can speed up the development and deployment of technologies that in some way would make the world a better place. That's our mission.
That certainly goes a little bit further than like a WeWork space.
Yep, that's for sure.
Well, what is your role as general partner there? What does that mean?
As a general partner, I really have a few parts to my job. One is to meet with interesting companies and founders as we try to find investments to make. Once we make investments, I'm involved with helping the companies in various ways, whether it's just advice or governance as a member of the board of directors. The general advice, for instance, this morning I was on the phone with the founder of a semiconductor company, and he's going through thinking about how to price the chips. He's got a big customer, and that is he's been working with for about a year. They're working with a semiconductor foundry, and it looks like before the end of the year, he'll have production samples of his chips coming out. And now he's like, okay, how do I charge for this? I can't really ask my customer how much they're willing to pay. So it's a whole bunch of back and forth advice with first-time founders often.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, I know you had a lot of back and forth with our team. How did you, get to know Rise, and how did we, become partners?
Sure, it's actually a long and winding road. With my colleague Katie Ray, she and I were running the Boston Techstars program. Honestly, 10 years ago, back in the fall of 2012, and the Rise team was part of that cohort, as you call it, for an accelerated program. At the time, they were called Urban Hero. Mm-hmm. And when they did their big onstage demo at the House of Blues in Boston, they were showing off a backpack-sized portable trampoline. So they had reinvented the spring, and it's a really fascinating technology using cords and composites in a stack that would make a very, very compact, powerful spring. And they had plans for all kinds of applications of that. So we met them 10 years ago. Really loved Aaron, Blake, Tomas, the core team at that time, which has expanded quite a bit. And now they came back a few years ago to the Engine and said, hey, we've really locked into this very particular linear actuator and a set of ideas for highly efficient linear actuators for heavy equipment, and it could be really strong component of the electrification of mobile equipment. And that was a long way from a backpack-sized trampoline.
Yeah.
But it was really, really, it fit quite well into a set of investments that we've been making around the electrification of different industries.
What was it like to see that transformation? I mean, yeah, 10 years is a long time, but really 10 years isn't a long time. And the time from when you met them and they did the demonstration to when you saw them in your new role, what was that like? Like, almost reintroducing yourself to them.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a completely different team and company in the level of professionalization. So when I visit the RISE facility today, and you look around, not only the level of engineering that goes into their product set, but the level of professionalization in terms of testing, the duty cycles that they're putting their cylinders through, their ability to work with outside vendors, for instance, external manufacturing rather than hand assembling everything. They're not working on prototypes anymore. These are things that are installed on trucks that are driving around, and then the larger cylinder, watching the capabilities of that and where it could be applied. They've grown from a set of recent college grads with incredibly sharp minds and ideas into, okay, how do we run a business that's putting things into the market that are going to have a long life cycle and be reliable?
That must be one of the most rewarding parts of your role, when you can say, hey, I was there when, and then look at them now.
Yeah, it is really amazing. It's really, it's a great satisfaction to see how far people come in their career.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, going back a little bit, in addition to Rise being in this, tough tech space for, and meeting the requirements of the engine, you're always looking at investments into electrification, decarbonization. How do those two elements fit into tough tech? Because sometimes it feels like an oxymoron. I mean, I know personally now, getting to know Rise and being a part of this team, that it's possible. But from where you sit, I mean, venturing into this 5.5 years ago, I mean, that's a pretty bold mission. And, how do you continue to carry it out every day?
Yeah, it's been to get the engine up and running as a firm. We made a decision early on that we would be pretty open to a variety of different investment opportunities. So we thought about, should we have a very systematic, thesis-driven approach? Hey, these are the UN 17 Sustainable Development Goals. What are the technologies that could fit into each of those? Let's have an investment in each box. And we decided that we really needed to be more opportunistic and be open to the people aspect. So great founders who really were attached in a very authentic way to the outcome of what they were working on, and let them bring the passion and mission. And as long as it fit into, we look at climate, we look at human health and wellness, and we look at advanced infrastructure, sort of technical platforms that support a bunch of industries. As long as it fit into one of our overall themes, and when the company succeeded at scale, it would make the world a better place. We were open to having a conversation. So in climate, we have a number of investments that are around energy generation. So deep geothermal, fusion power. We have a number of investments that are around energy storage. So large scale grid connected batteries. We have, these things all kind of fit next to each other. We learned about the grid from investing in Form Energy for electric storage. We met a team at a company called Veer that's working on superconducting power lines for transmission. So understanding the issues around the grid around storage, that made us able to understand the transmission aspects. We invested into a set of companies related to decarbonization directly. So Boston Metal, which is working on a new process for smelting ore into metal that could lead to green steel, carbon neutral steel production. We met a woman, Leah Ellis, out at MIT, who had been doing research on a new electrochemical way to create lime that could lead to clean cement production. So
Okay.
really very large kind of industrial processes. And then we started looking at EVs and mobility across a range of applications, even a software company called the Routing Company for shared rides, but an algorithm that really packs more people into each vehicle without making the experience worse.
Right.
You don't have to wait longer to be picked up, minimize how much longer the ride will be because you're dropping other people off first. We even invested into, now that we started looking at mobility, we invested into a company called Lilac Solutions, which has a more efficient way to extract lithium. So it's a really broad range. And then Rise, with their energy efficient cylinders, really fits into the whole. We had started working with an autonomous trucking company that was working in ports and distribution centers, and we started understanding that materials handling with electrification was incredibly difficult. The use of the fact that hydraulic cylinders are very energy inefficient, coupled with the fact that you can't really do regenerative recover the energy when let's say you're doing container handling and you're moving a container down to the ground. You should be able to recover the energy, but you really that's a handicap for hydraulics.
Sure.
So for Rise fit right into all of the stuff that we'd learned about electrification, mobility, decarbonization.
Yep.
And it was they were a completely different company than when we knew them 10 years ago. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm not sure I'm going to ask this properly, but you've built a community in each of these segments, or at least it seems as though you're building out a community. Was that your initial, thought as you went into this, or as you kind of make investments and inroads with these different spaces, you're like, hey, we can make this fits in with what we've already started, or if you squint, this could fit, and then you find a missing piece later that kind of bridges those gaps. Was that initially a thought, or is that a byproduct of making good decisions and really finding wonderful founders?
That's a really interesting question. Honestly, I think it's a combination. We absolutely at the very beginning felt like, hey, the engine is just one firm. How much of a dent can we make in all of the problems that are out there? We need to try to encourage the ecosystem to pull on this together. And so we designed our programs that we run, the facilities that we're creating, intentionally to try to pull people together, like-minded people together. So we had that as a kind of one leg of the stool as we started working. And then I do believe, just as you said, as we meet these founders, we learn from them, and that in some way helps us have a prepared mind, so to speak, when we meet the next set of founders. And that is so learning about the grid, as I mentioned, around storage makes us more able to understand, and transmission is a real problem as well. The companies learn from each other in odd ways. So as an example, Form Energy, the storage company, developed a whole set of software for modeling how would your system, if you're a power generation company or a utility operating a grid, how would things change if you added storage? And they got potential customers to give them historical data
Hmm.
about demand and transmission and generation, different kind of loads and sources of power. And then they could show them all these what if scenarios. That company was doing a demonstration it was a fun day. We had Bill Gates come to the office with Ernie Moniz, who used to be energy secretary, and they were doing demo of the software. And one of our other companies that we work with via separation, completely different industry. They
Hmm.
do filtration, so industrial separation instead of evaporation or distillation, by using membranes from filtration.
Okay.
And afterwards, they realized, oh, we should do a similar type of modeling tool because we're going to people who run, let's say, a paper mill, and we're trying to convince them that instead of using these giant evaporators, you should use some of our membrane separation, and it would save you time and money and increase the throughput. But we can say that, but if we could show them and ask them for their production data, run it through this modeling tool, we could show them and run these what if scenarios. So completely different than a grid connected storage company. It's a
Right.
separation company, but they have a lot in common to help potential customers understand the benefits of a new approach.
How do you share that? Like, so in that example, where of course it's a high profile event if Bill Gates is there, but, how do you share those sorts of successes or ideas, or, give the opportunity to these two companies that are different, industry segments, the opportunity to actually get together like that? How does that type of information sharing happen?
Yeah, it's I think of it as kind of concentric circles. So within the engine, with the portfolio companies, I think we just made our 45th investment. We have a, a purely internal events. So we have an annual CEO offsite where we organize different kind of sharing sessions, best practices, and storytelling sessions. We have different small CEO circles. So 6 CEOs of young companies. Once a month, we get together and they share with each other what's going on within their current issues. And then the next circle is external. So we run in October, we run a 2-day conference that we've run for a number of years where we have when we did it virtually, we could have about 900 attendees. In person, we're going to go back in person this year. It's about 400 attendees, and we have case studies and sharing, and it's open to a broader audience,
Mhm.
but all around tough tech, both investing but also building. How do you scale your company, and what are the issues that you run across as you go from bench scale science to prototype and proof of concept to joint development with a customer to commercial agreements, kind of there's the issues that you face constantly change, and how can you learn from the people who are a few years ahead of you.
Yeah.
And then what we're trying to do with our new space, at least in the Boston area, is create a series of programs and get-togethers that we could host, but other people could run them. So that's even a third ring or third circle where the engine doesn't have to be the one that's putting together all of this information sharing. We can have a venue and kind of a framework that other people could volunteer to co-organize, because I think that could scale the community even bigger.
Do you have co-working spaces in other cities outside of Boston as well?
We have not. We at the at our board of directors level, we talk about that every so often, and have consciously made a strategic decision for the time being, at least, that the most important thing is for the engine to show that our system can work and can help companies get to global scale,
Mhm.
sort of in irrefutable success. And so we feel that we can't really say that we have it figured out yet, what are the required elements to make these companies able to be successful. When we started, we were like, okay, great, we can write a check at the seed stage, but is there anybody who's going to write a check at the Series A, B, or project finance? We don't know, because at the time, clean tech and other kind of industrial investments were not really they'd fallen out of favor for a lot of venture capital firms. Because of climate, they've really a lot of capital has shifted back towards kind of tough tech or deep tech companies.
Has the current state of the economy and the supply chain issues through COVID, has that all enhanced or detracted from investment in the space, or are you running into more competition to participate at seed rounds or beyond?
It's interesting. It's case by case. The pandemic really hit certain industries hard. Not luckily for the engine, we weren't involved in investing in kind of retail or kind of on the ground commerce or travel or entertainment. That's some of the industries that were really hit hard. On the health side, a number of the companies that we work with, it actually helped because they were working on things like public health through tracking sewage. One company, BioBot, was doing sewage sampling for mapping opioid use at a neighborhood level. And then they realized they could track at a city scale, like in Boston, testing Deer Island, and you can keep an eye on how 2 million people, how COVID is increasing or decreasing across 2 million people. Their business grew dramatically during the pandemic. The supply chain issues really did slow down some of the ability to, semiconductor shortages for some of the companies that have electromechanical parts of their design. The biggest recent US news is the Inflation Reduction Act. And for some of the companies that we just put together a detailed breakdown of all the different components of that and how for each of the companies in our portfolio, which ones could have a direct economic impact. For Rise, for instance, there's $600 million of 100% rebate for communities that buy electrical heavy equipment like dump trucks and garbage trucks that are electric. And that is kind of like, it makes it, for some communities, it's free money for an electric bus or an electric garbage truck. So that's like firing a starting gun for a race to say, okay, who's ready to take that $600 million, because it really changes the landscape.
That's wild. Where do you see issues coming up in tough tech now, or where do you see areas of opportunity?
It's there have been a number of decarbonization efforts where they rely on a carbon tax or volunteer. Large corporations are often making a commitment to reduce their carbon footprint and are willing to pay a green premium for whether it's for electricity or materials like cement and steel, or even something really uneconomic on its own, like direct air carbon capture. The policies like the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, really can accelerate the development of some of these technologies, but they have to get to the point where they kind of stand on their own legs. And so the economics at scale of carbon capture is one area that will take some time for that to kind of become purely economic on its own. We definitely see a lot of interest in different forms of energy storage. So the hydrogen economy, using hydrogen or ammonia or even aluminum as a energy store for moving. It's kind of like converting renewable electricity into something that you can transport into hydrogen or ammonia or aluminum is kind of the odd one. That's something that we're always looking at, people that are doing new kinds of electrolyzers for splitting water into hydrogen and oxygen using electricity. New approaches. We have a company in Houston that we work with, Syzygy, that's working on hydrogen production from electricity. So the hydrogen economy, but in a broader sense of kind of energy storage and transportation, is definitely an area that we're keeping an eye on. Completely unrelated, where we believe that there are some real opportunities in biomanufacturing,
Okay.
which perhaps could be used for things like carbon neutral jet fuel, and in its own way, at a platform level, improvements to just some of the base technologies around biomanufacturing will have a lot of downstream positive benefits.
That's really exciting. And, you must see this as you get into these different networks and you start investing in one. Now you're seeing opportunities that extend beyond.
Yeah, absolutely. Like biomanufacturing, we invested in one company that's working on protein production, another completely different application, but similar technology is working on imagine that you could grow wood with fermentation. So, paper pulp, without having to plant trees, wait 20 years, cut them down, shred them, truck them around. But again, it always comes back down to the founder and the entrepreneurial spirit that they bring.
So, our listeners are going to listen to this. They're listening as it relates to Rise and hearing kind of your story and how, we all came together here. But there's a number of, folks that are listening too that may want the Engine's help. How do you reach out to people individually, or do they come to you and say, hey, we have this, crazy climate idea or, way that we want to, change the world, and then you consider that? How do you go about, looking at potential investments and, potential founders or founders of companies that could potentially fit in your portfolio?
Sure. We definitely have, we do both. We do outreach and try to kind of have strong relationships with research universities, large corporations, kind of understand what's being worked on in academia and kind of what are the strategic needs of large customers. So we kind of maintain those types of relationships as well as we can. We also have a pretty welcoming front door. People can reach out to us. In terms of investment, we tend to focus on Boston or New England area, very early stage, seed stage. That's kind of our sweet spot, but we're open. We have some investments around the country, and we've looked at a few in Europe. We haven't made any investments yet so far outside the US. But people can reach out to us. We have a whole team of associates and partners who are always looking over material, taking short meetings. So yeah, we the more the merrier.
Well, that is exciting. I mean, the future of investing in Tough Neck looks really bright. So this is really cool to hear.
Yep, thank you. It's a ton of fun to work in this area because we are mission focused. The people that we meet all are trying to solve real problems and help companies solve their problems and challenges. So it's really satisfying to be part of that environment.
I mean, no doubt. Well, it's exciting just to hear it. So thank you for joining me today, Reed Sturtevant, general partner at the Engine. I really appreciate your time this morning.
Yep, Justin, I'm happy to be here.
You've been listening to the latest episode of the Rise Inside podcast. On behalf of Reed Sturtevant, general partner at the Engine, my name is Justin Starbird. Till next time.
You have been listening to the Rise Inside podcast, presented by Rise Robotics. On behalf of our guest today and host Justin Starbird, thank you for listening. Please share your feedback on our LinkedIn page